Tucked away in the northern Italian city of Turin, a centuries-old relic has drawn pilgrims, skeptics, scientists, and theologians alike. Known as the Shroud of Turin, this length of linen has long been venerated by many as the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. Whether regarded as a holy relic or an extraordinary medieval artifact, the shroud continues to fuel debate, devotion, and scientific inquiry. A linen shroud of intrigue. The Shroud of Turin is not just a piece of fabric, it's a mystery wrapped in both history and faith. Measuring approximately 4.3 meters, 14 feet 3 inches, long and 1.1 meters, 3 feet 7 inches wide, the cloth bears the faint image of a man. The figure appears to have suffered the wounds typically associated with Roman crucifixion. Lash marks across the back, punctures around the scalp as though from a crown of thorns, bruises on the shoulders, and apparent bloodstains. What makes the image especially fascinating is its two-sided nature. One half of the cloth seems to show the man's back, while the other half displays the front. This has led many to believe the body was laid on one side of the linen, and then covered by folding the cloth over the head and down the front, essentially wrapping it from foot to face. The result is a ghostly impression of a gaunt, roughly 1.7 meter tall, 5 feet 7 inches figure, eyes sunken, bearing the signs of extreme suffering. While the shroud is sometimes confused with the veil of Veronica, another legendary Christian relic, the two are not the same. The veil, as told in tradition, was used by a woman named Veronica to wipe Jesus' face during his walk to the crucifixion site at Golgotha, leaving a miraculous imprint of his visage. The Shroud of Turin, by contrast, is said to be the actual burial cloth used after Jesus' death, a cloak of history. The documented history of the Shroud of Turin begins in the 14th century, though believers argue that its origins go back to the time of Christ. The first verifiable account dates to 1354, when the shroud was reportedly in the possession of Geoffroy de Charnay, a French knight from Liry. How he came to acquire it remains unknown. Just a few decades later, in 1389, controversy erupted when the local bishop of Troyes publicly denounced the shroud as a clever forgery, even claiming that the artist had confessed to painting it. Despite the bishop's condemnation, the Avignon antipope Clement VII chose a more diplomatic route. He allowed the shroud to be exhibited for devotional purposes, though he stipulated it must be presented as a representation of Christ's burial cloth, not the original. Public interest in the relic remained strong, and in 1453, it changed hands again when Geoffroy's granddaughter, Marguerite de Charnay, donated it to the powerful House of Savoy, which ruled parts of modern-day France and Italy. Tragedy struck in 1532 when a fire in the chapel where it was housed caused significant damage to the shroud. Water used to douse the flames left further marks, ironically enhancing its mystique. Eventually, in 1578, the House of Savoy relocated their capital to Turin, and the shroud came with them. Since then, it has been kept in the Cathedral of San Giovanni Battista in Turin, rarely displayed to the public. Major exhibitions have occurred only on notable occasions, such as royal weddings or religious anniversaries. In more recent years, Pope John Paul II, Pope Benedict XIV, and Pope Francis have all organized viewings, attracting millions of faithful from around the globe. A scientific enigma. Modern scientific investigation into the shroud began in earnest in the late 19th century. In 1898, an Italian photographer named Secondo Pia captured the first detailed image of the cloth. To his astonishment, the photograph's negative revealed a clearer, more lifelike representation of the man's face and body. This discovery sparked a wave of excitement, as it seemed to suggest the image on the cloth was a kind of natural negative, centuries before the invention of photography. Throughout the 20th century, researchers used increasingly sophisticated methods to analyze the shroud. Tests were conducted to determine whether the image was painted, burned, or transferred by some chemical or natural process. Yet no conclusive evidence emerged to support any single theory. The most significant development came in 1988, when the Vatican allowed a team of scientists from 3 prestigious laboratories in Switzerland, the United States, and the United Kingdom to conduct carbon-14 dating tests on small fragments of the cloth. The results were startling. All 3 labs independently concluded that the linen was woven between 1260 and 1390 CE, placing its origin squarely in the medieval period. This seemingly definitive dating dealt a blow to the claim that the shroud could have come from the 1st century. However, controversy quickly followed. Critics of the carbon dating argued that the samples may have been taken from a repaired section of the cloth, or that contamination from fire, smoke, and environmental factors skewed the results. A modern twist. Just when it seemed the debate might finally settle, a 2022 study reignited scientific curiosity. Italian researchers used a novel technique called wide-angle X-ray scattering to examine the structure of the lion at a microscopic level. Unlike carbon dating, which measures radioactive decay, wide-angle X-ray scattering analyzes how materials degrade over time due to environmental stress and molecular breakdown. Remarkably, the structural degradation patterns of the shroud's fibers matched those of a linen sample known to date between 55 to 74 CE, roughly the time of Jesus' crucifixion. The researchers proposed that carbon contamination from centuries of handling, candle soot, and fire damage may have thrown off the earlier carbon-14 results. However, the scientists behind the 2022 study were careful to stress that their findings did not confirm the shroud's authenticity. Instead, they urged further research, stating that while their results were consistent with a first-century origin, more robust testing would be required to reach a firm conclusion. The Church's stance. Over the centuries, the Catholic Church has walked a careful line between devotion and skepticism. While many popes have expressed reverence for the shroud and even called it a mirror of the gospel, the Holy See has never officially endorsed it as an authentic relic. Instead, the Vatican encourages the faithful to treat it as a symbol of Christ's suffering and resurrection worthy of veneration, regardless of its historical provenance. This approach has allowed believers to engage with the shroud spiritually, even while scientific investigations continue. Museums, documentaries, and even 3D reconstructions based on the shroud have kept public fascination alive. As recently as 2025, a Christian group in Spain announced plans to build the world's largest statue of Jesus, modeled after the figure on the shroud. Faith, fraud, or phenomenon. So what is the Shroud of Turin? A medieval forgery made with incredible skill and insight. A miraculous imprint left by divine intervention at the moment of resurrection. Or simply an unexplained historical artifact that defies easy classification. The truth may never be fully known. But in many ways, that mystery is what makes the shroud so compelling. Unlike traditional relics, which are often accepted or dismissed without much thought, the Shroud of Turin continues to challenge the boundaries between science and faith, inviting inquiry while resisting final answers. Its image is haunting, beautiful, and deeply human. It evokes suffering and hope, doubt and belief, all etched into a fragile piece of cloth that has survived fire, flood, and centuries of scrutiny. If you found the mystery of the Shroud of Turin as fascinating as we did, hit that like button and share it with your fellow truth seekers. Got thoughts, theories, or questions? Drop them in the comments. We love hearing from you. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss more deep dives into history's greatest enigmas.